Something about this whole situation just doesn't feel right. When Kevin Stefanski stepped up to the podium to talk about Shedeur Sanders' role, the words coming out of his mouth said one thing, but his body language told an entirely different story. The Cleveland Browns head coach confirmed that Shedeur would be the official backup to Dillon Gabriel, but the way he said it, you could feel the hesitation. His tone was careful, almost rehearsed, and it's got fans wondering, was this really his decision? Let's be honest, Stefanski has always been the kind of coach who chooses his words like a politician. He talks about intentional decisions and thinking about what's best for the players. But this time, the message seemed more like damage control than excitement. You could see him glance down, shrug his shoulders, and fidget with his notes when Shedeur's name came up. That's not the body language of a coach celebrating his new QB2. That's the look of a man who just got told what to do. Swirling that this decision came from the top, straight from owner Jimmy Haslem himself. The same Haslem who's been pushing for more media buzz, more attention, and frankly, more star power in Cleveland. And what better way to do that than by putting Deion Sanders' son one step away from the starting spot? It's starting to look less like a football decision and more like a marketing move. Stefanski's trying to play it cool, but his uneasiness says it all. The question now isn't if Shedeur gets his shot, it's when. And with this kind of tension bubbling inside the organization, that opportunity might come a lot sooner than anyone expects. But this is just the beginning, because once we look closer at how this promotion really happened, things get even stranger. When the Browns officially named Shedeur Sanders as the backup quarterback, fans thought it came out of nowhere. Just a week ago, Kevin Stefanski had been dodging every question about his quarterback depth chart. Reporter, we'll see how the week plays out. So when he suddenly made it official, people were shocked. What changed? Some insiders say it wasn't Stefanski who changed his mind. It was the pressure around him. After Joe Flacco was traded and the Browns' offense began losing direction, the fan base started calling for something new, something exciting. And let's face it, Shedeur Sanders isn't just another rookie. He's one of the most talked about young quarterbacks in the country, and wherever he goes, the cameras follow. The moment the announcement dropped, social media exploded. Fans celebrated, analysts debated, and critics questioned the timing. Why now? Why after weeks of hesitation? Some believe it was a move to calm the noise, to keep the fan base engaged during a rough stretch. Others think it was strategic, giving Shedeur a closer look at real game preparation before the Browns make a much bigger decision later this season. But the one person who didn't seem too thrilled was Stefanski. The decision. His responses were clipped, his answers guarded. Shedeur will be the backup, he said. Just that. No praise, no excitement, no talk about potential. It almost felt like he was reading from a script someone else wrote. Still, regardless of how it happened, this move changes everything. Shedeur isn't sitting on the sidelines anymore. He's now one play away from stepping into the spotlight. And the way things have been going in Cleveland, that spotlight could turn on at any moment. But if this was just a football decision, things would make sense. The problem is, Stefanski's tone suggests there's more going on than he's letting on. When Kevin Stefanski talked about Shedeur's promotion, it wasn't what he said, it was how he said it. He didn't gush about the rookie's arm strength or his work ethic. He didn't mention leadership or potential. Instead, he used this careful, almost sterile phrase. We want to be intentional about our decision-making, especially with young P. Decision he didn't fully agree with. That word, intentional, kept popping up during the entire press conference. It's the kind of thing coaches say when they're distancing themselves from the choice itself. Almost like he's saying, hey, don't blame me, this is what the organization decided. And you can tell the media picked up on it too. The follow-up questions came fast. What makes Shedeur ready? What changed from last week? But Stefanski dodged every single one. He smiled, nodded, and went back to those same neutral answers. That's when fans started noticing the cracks. Because if Stefanski was truly behind Shedeur, he would have been excited. He would have talked about what this kid brings to the locker room. Instead, he sounded like someone tiptoeing around a sensitive subject, like a man who knows there's a bigger marketable and active on the roster. Some say it's about building momentum for the future. Others say it's about selling tickets. Either way, Stefanski doesn't seem thrilled about it. Because deep down, this isn't just about a quarterback depth chart. It's about control. Who's really running the show in Cleveland? The head coach or the people signing his checks? And once you start asking that question, the body language in that press conference makes a lot more sense. But if you thought the coach looked uneasy, wait until you see how the rest of the staff reacted. You can learn a lot from what people don't say. And in Kevin Stefanski's case, his silence spoke volumes. The moment the question about Shedeur Sanders came up, you could see it in his face. His shoulders stiffened, his eyes darted, and his voice dropped just slightly. He answered quickly, but his tone had that forced calmness that coaches use when they're trying not to show frustration. When a coach is proud of his player, you feel it. There's energy, passion, maybe even a smile. But with Stefanski, there was none of that. Instead, it was hesitation, short answers, vague phrasing, and that half-hearted shrug that says, "Let's move on." The internet didn't miss it either. Clips of that moment started circulating on X and TikTok within hours, with fans breaking down every micro-expression like it was game film. And almost everyone came to the same conclusion. Stefanski didn't look like a man making his own call. Even the way he said, "Shedeur will be the backup," sounded more like an order being confirmed than a choice being explained. He never once said, "I believe he's ready," or "he's earned this." Instead, he said it as if he was checking off a box. That kind of cautious delivery doesn't come from confidence. It comes from pressure. And here's the thing. When a coach looks that uncomfortable about a decision, it acknowledges without risking their own job. Maybe it's the owner, maybe it's the GM, but clearly, someone wanted Shedeur in that QB2 spot no matter what. To fans, that might sound like good news, more opportunity for Shedeur. But for the locker room, it can create tension. Players start wondering who's really in charge. And when your coach looks like he's just following orders, it's only a matter of time before that uncertainty spreads. But here's where it gets even more interesting, because this power struggle doesn't end with Stefanski. There are rumors that it runs all the way up to the top. Behind the scenes, there's a growing belief that this entire move wasn't about football. It was about power. Multiple insiders have hinted that ownership, especially Jimmy Haslem, had a heavy hand in the decision to push Shedeur Sanders into the spotlight. And honestly, it makes sense. Shedeur brings attention, headlines, and fan engagement. Three things the Browns desperately need right. The timing lines up too perfectly. Ticket sales have dipped, local media's been critical, and the team's offense hasn't exactly been inspiring since the Flacco trade. So what's the quickest way to flip the narrative? Put one of the most talked about young quarterbacks in the country just a snap away from the field. It's a marketing goldmine, and ownership knows it. But for Stefanski and his coaching staff, that kind of top-down interference can create real friction. Coaches want control over who plays and when. When that control gets taken away, it sends a clear message. This isn't just about winning games. It's about building a brand. And in the NFL, that kind of dynamic can tear a locker room apart fast. Still, Shedeur's handling it like a pro. He's staying composed, saying all the right things, and letting his work speak for itself. He knows the spotlight's coming, whether the coaching staff likes it or not. And if there's one thing the Browns have proven over the years, it's that nothing stays quiet in Cleveland for long. Because when ownership starts making football decisions, there's always fallout, and it usually happens sooner than anyone expects. Through all the noise, one thing's clear: Shedeur Sanders isn't panicking. While everyone else is dissecting body language and ownership drama, Shedeur has kept his composure. In interviews, he doesn't feed into controversy. He talks about staying ready, about being patient, and about learning every single day. It's the kind of maturity that surprises people who only know him from the flashy headlines. But make no mistake, Shedeur's confidence is real. You can see it in how he carries himself during practices and pressers. Even as the backup, he walks like a starter. That quiet swagger, it's the same energy his father, Deion Sanders, built an entire career on. And a snap. The cameras will be rolling, social media will be buzzing, and the comparisons to Deion will start immediately. That kind of pressure can either make a player or break him. But here's where things get tricky. If Shedeur plays well, Stefanski's hesitant decision suddenly looks genius, and ownership gets exactly what it wanted: attention and momentum. But if things go south, it could expose a deeper fracture inside the organization, one between the coaching staff and the front office. And in a city like Cleveland, where patience runs thin, that kind of tension doesn't stay behind closed doors for long. Still, there's a certain electricity in the air right now. Fans feel like they're watching the early chapters of something bigger. Maybe the rise of a new franchise face, or maybe another chapter in Cleveland's endless QB carousel. Either way, all eyes are on Shedeur now, because one way or another, he's going to define how this season is remembered: as the spark that brought new life to the Browns, or as the move that tore the locker room apart. And the craziest part? We might not have to wait long to find out.